I didn't actually first discover the word transgender until I was about 15, so a good 2.5 year gap before I realized that that word applied to me. And I didn't actually start coming out to people until I was 20. Looking back, I realized I always wanted to do stereotypically boy things. I wanted to go play outside and all of that stuff. It's when I was little, my mom signed me up for soccer and everything, and I liked kicking the ball around and all of that. I was never really good at sports. I actually really sucked at most of the sports I did, but I liked doing them. And then I remember we had a pool in our backyard when I was little, and these little boys that I basically grew up with would come over and they'd all be able to run around with other shirts on. I was like, why can't I do that? So that was one of the strongest, looking back, I should have realized then that there was something off, but I didn't. The first trans person I ever met, the first open and out trans person I ever met was here. And that kind of rocked my world because I knew it was a thing that happened, but I didn't really understand that it could apply to someone like me until then. So I've done a lot of research into the different terms and all of that myself. I don't really prefer any, I generally just call myself trans. I just shorten it like that. There was a whole big stink about how transsexual, because it was in the DSM, so it was classified as a mental illness and all of that stuff. There's a lot of negative connotation with that. But just as the word queer, a lot of the younger people are reclaiming it. And because we're realizing more and more non-binary people are more of a prominent presence, we're realizing now that transsexual can imply that the person wants to go through transitioning physically rather than just socially, whereas transgender is just affirming of their gender. My name before I legally changed it was Haley, but that's not a very common question you should ask trans people.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know, so I'm glad you're correcting me.
A lot of times trans people think of that as their dead name, so they don't want to be dead named, or just like they wouldn't want to be misgendered by calling them by the wrong pronouns. They don't want that old name to be associated with them anymore. Right. I actually got my letter for hormones a year before I even started hormones because I wanted to wait it out. The biggest apprehension I had was I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder, the two of them combined kind of mess with my moods, but they also mess with the way that I present myself. So I had a long year thinking about if this was something I actually wanted or if it was just something that felt right at the time and it was going to bother me later and all of that. I thought maybe it was a different personality coming out, all of that stuff. So I had a hard time at first, but now that I've actually started it and all of that, I think it was the right choice. Very first thing was my voice started cracking like I was a pubescent teenage boy. All of my friends would make fun of me. My sister still every once in a while will make fun of me because it still keeps dropping even though I've been on them for over a year now. It keeps dropping lower and lower, so anytime my voice cracks, all of my friends make fun of me. I think the biggest effect that I've had emotionally is the fact that I still feel emotions and all of that, but I can't cry, which bothers me a lot. Coming from someone who has been a very emotional person all my life, crying was something that it's helpful to anyone, and now it's probably been a good 6 months since I've actually broke down and cried, which is a really weird feeling because instead of crying I just get angry because that I can't cry, and then I'm focused on the fact that I can't cry and I just get even more angry. I worked at a car wash with my sister, and I had been working there since before I came out, so all of the newer employees only knew me as Hayden, even though I hadn't legally changed my name or anything like that yet. But one of the guys in the lube shop called me It. So since my sister worked there, she heard about it and she socked him in the stomach. So I was glad she stood up for me and everything. And my boss wanted to try and make him apologize. And since I was on my way out anyway, I was like, I don't care about your apology. But my sister asked him if he did it. He laughed about it, so she punched him. And then she was like, do you know why that was so offensive and wrong? And like, he didn't really understand. So she was like, just don't do that. Call him him. He's a guy. And I've been back there since and like got my oil changed and all of that. And like, he's been nothing but respectful since. So it was kind of a learning opportunity. But the fact that he called me it to my face was really bothersome.